end of the day, Damso and Bonafide were 3 seconds clear of the escort, which, as a Class S20 entry, was unable to score points. Championship leader Agip was 5th, but effectively 2nd, as it was doubtful if the imported Daewoo drivers would be eligible for points. While Saturday had been dry, competitors awoke to torrential rain on Sunday morning.
Paolo, you start this morning in a very strong position. How are you going to treat today in the rain?
I think today will be a bit of a lottery. Unfortunately, with all this rain, the roads will be very treacherous. And I think it'll be a bit of a gamble, because if you go a bit hard, you're going to fall off. If you go a bit slow, you're going to get off the pace. So it's to find that fine balance, I think, is going to be tricky.
A 4-kilometre combined gravel and tarmac stage using car parks and access roads at Kyalami was the first test before the event moved on to pure gravel stages. Damso and Bonafide were gunning for their 6th consecutive title for Toyota and immediately stamped their authority on the event by recording the fastest time in a masterly display of smooth driving. It wasn't a good start for the Ford crew as they lost 8 seconds to their Toyota. Still, Damso was only 11 seconds ahead of them, and there was a whole day's rallying still to go. Head wasn't hanging about in the Daewoo and got to grips with the terrain to record the 2nd fastest time, only 2 seconds slower than Damso. Meanwhile, his teammate Dick Blomqvist in the Van der Merwe car was in trouble as an electrical problem caused him to stop and lose 2.5 minutes. Agip was intent on closing the gap to his championship rival and matched Head's time of 3 minutes dead. Back at the Daewoo camp, there was frenzied activity as technicians set about tracing the intermittent electrical fault on Blomqvist's car. The traditional rally stages kicked off with a muddy 11.9 kilometre test on the outskirts of Bronkhorstspruit between Pretoria and Witbank. It was a taste of what was to come, and those in the front of the field had the advantage. Cars further back would have to contend with chewed-up roads that were much more slippery. Our in-car camera shows just how much surface water there was, and it was still raining. A hovercraft would have been ideal. Damso and Bonafide's first encounter with deep standing water cost them dearly. Head was on a charge. He'd competed on the Castrol Rally a few years back behind the wheel of a Ford Sierra Cosworth, and although he showed a lot of pace, never made it to the podium. This time, he wanted to win. He was followed by teammate Blomqvist, now without the misfire, who recorded the 2nd fastest time for this stage. JP Damso was also charging and took almost half a minute off Fekker and Lukowitz to move into the Class S18 lead. They won this class on their debut in the Torrential Rally in March. With Brand out of the event, there was no real opposition for Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, but they were chasing a podium finish and points for Volkswagen's Manufacturers' Championship aspirations. Mostert and Vermeulen were reveling in the conditions, and some fine driving saw them in contention for the Class S18 honours. With lots of rain about, conditions for servicing weren't very pleasant.
Serge, that was the first real test of this rally. What was it like?
Quite slippery and a lot of water lying around. So, one of the puddles we almost actually stopped, you know, the water gone into the air filter, so we're just actually quite lucky we got out of that stage.
How much time do you think you lost?
I must have lost a good 20 seconds, I reckon.
It was going to be a fight for survival, as Piazza Musso discovers that control can be regained, even if it looks to be totally lost. It didn't seem to upset his rhythm at all, and he was soon back in the groove, but had lost valuable time. Watch how the road surface changes from firm but wet gravel to deep mud puddles without warning. It's commonly regarded as a rally driver's nightmare. If the surface changes halfway through a corner, the consequences can be severe. Blomqvist's car was back in peak condition, and the Swedish veteran showed the skills that took him to World Rally Championship. He needed to make up 2 minutes plus and wasn't about to give up trying. Otherwise, Jannie Hubig needed to keep Damso in his sights if he was to keep his championship hopes alive. Later at this stage, the Golf got water into its electrics and he lost more time to Damso. Damso Jr. found time for a quick spin and didn't waste time with a three-point turn to get back on the road. After severe tyre wear problems on the opening day, Lawrence and Paisley found themselves way down the order. They're fighters, and it wasn't long before they started climbing back up the leaderboard. Meanwhile, Hubig's crew attempted to waterproof the Golf's electrical system.
Jannie, you lost time in that stage.
Yeah, this thing got water in the distributor cap, and it was misfiring for the last 2 kilometers on the stage, so it's really getting annoying me at this stage. I think it's time for Douglas to start holding on.
In Woodbank, the conditions were even worse. An early storm had uprooted blue gum trees and torn roof sheeting off buildings, and it was still raining heavily. Piazza Musso did a good job, but it was the Daewoo pair that featured at the top of the timesheets as Robbie Head beat Blomqvist by 11 seconds. These two were almost a full minute quicker than the escort, and Damso got stuck and then indulged in a quick roll, all of which cost him 2 minutes. With the roads having been freshly graded for the event, banks had built up at the sides and knee-deep puddles soon formed. As the day wore on, so the conditions got worse. JP Damso's hopes disappeared on this stage when his Toyota drowned. Fecken and Lukowitz were luckier. They too got stuck, but were able to get going after losing 10 minutes. One can always depend on Chart van der Walt. He has an uncanny knack of getting cars to the finish, and he was showing a good turn of speed as well. Others had better ideas. Why not drive around the deep puddles? Mostert and Vermeulen proved that it can be done. Another team to get stuck on this stage was the Team Total Golf pairing of Barry Krobler and Mike Burrows. Like Fecken, they lost 10 minutes. And just look at that rain. Paul and Duncan navigate their golf through a deep channel. It was to no avail though, as it was the last stage they completed. Damso arrives and his dedicated crew gets stuck in to get the Conquest back into shape.
Serge, what happened?
Well, we got stuck in the water a couple of times. The water's so deep in there. And then we were trying to avoid the paddles, but jumping the little hump, and the car just flipped right over.
Doesn't look like there's much damage to the car.
No, basically the door, I think. That's all I've seen so far.
While others were dropping out like flies, Lawrence and Paisley were mastering the conditions and climbing up the order rapidly. Klaassen also succumbed to the conditions when water got into their Nissan's motor and it came to an abrupt stop with bent conrods. Another crew due for an early bath was that of Port Elizabeth traffic officer Keith Coleman and Uwe Koch. This was Christo Ackerman and Andre Pfeiffer's home event, but the rally gods weren't lenient on them as their golf retired after stage 10. Pierre Goosen and Ossie de Jong are another consistent team. Their 1600cc Golf is reliable and they got through. Nico Hicks and Menno Hovelaar have come a long way this year, and like Goosen, they also passed the test. Without a limited slip diff, the Group N cars are at a huge disadvantage in conditions like this. Yet Labscher and Sullivan were succeeding where others were failing. British rallying conditions are often described as being the toughest in the world. We caught up with Robbie Head.
Robbie, you've established yourself at the front of the field.
Yeah, it looks like it. Conditions are very difficult. I mean, it's probably more like a safari rally, and I've never driven in anything like this before.
Damso suffered more problems. The clutch and diff on the Toyota was taking a strain, and almost a full hour of lateness was used before the Toyota was back on the way again.
Whammy, this must be every team manager's nightmare. What happened?
No, we don't know what happened. We're still trying to find out what happened. It is a problem, yes, but I suppose that's part of rallying and part of motorsport. We run risks, we have atrocious conditions like we had today, rain, mud. We just haven't had snow yet. And we still have about 28 minutes, so maybe we can still fix it and pull something out of that. Yeah, we hope.
Well, that's one way of getting photographers out the way. And Damso powers past a traffic jam of abandoned cars on stage 12. Co-drivers have many uses. Derek Sullivan is given the task of finding a route through a puddle, and Loebscher drives past Damso's stuck car. That could mean the end of Damso and Bonafide's championship chances. And for his efforts, Sullivan gets a face full of mud. Ben van der Westhuizen is an acclaimed mud specialist, but almost gets it wrong here. But no harm done, and he carries on towards the Group N championship crown. Eventually, Damso gets going, but not quite under his own steam. Adrian Burford was giving Robin Houghton a ride of his life and doing a good job in the almost standard Hilux. Afterwards, he said that he'd never spent so much time sideways in his life. Now, that's commonly known as maximum attack. It seems to work. Looks impressive too, as Jan Delport and Fanie Bukers demonstrate. But there was high drama for Habig.
Yanni, what happened?
We got stuck in one of those famous water puddles, and the started obviously got a lot of water inside, and it just wouldn't start. So we got going after a while.
Serge, you had more problems.
Yeah, we got stuck in this last stage for 10 minutes against. I think we're time-barred by now, so I think we're just going to call it a quits.
Is that your season over then?
Yeah.
Conditions in the service park were not much better, but service technicians are a tough breed, hard-working as well. At last, there was no more mud in the final stages with tarmac sprints in Witbank and Pretoria, and less than half the number of original starters made it. By now, the rally was all over bar the shouting, and really it was just for the spectators' benefit, although Piazza Musso won the Witbank stage ahead of the Daewoo's. Douglas Judd must have been expecting more mud and water as he looked ready to get out and push. The final stage saw the Daewoo's dominate, head-beating Blomqvist by 4 seconds as Piazza Musso lost almost 4 minutes and Beckham had a wild moment. It was twisty with high curves to catch out the unwary and daredevils, but there were no more casualties as everybody was trying to get home and dry. Robbie Head and Guy Hodgson were convincing winners over Stig Blomqvist and Frans Boshoff, while Piazza Musso and Nick Haddon did a sterling job in taking third. Lawrence and Paisley's polished performance saw them take 4th place ahead of unsung heroes Van der Walt and Harding, while Habig claimed the championship in 6th. Barker and Jabert used their 4-wheel drive advantage to claim an impressive 10th. Goosen and de Jong won the Class S19 title by taking 11th ahead of Group N champions Ben and Isabel van der Westhuizen in the Daewoo.
Yeah, fantastic. The cars ran very reliably the whole day, all day yesterday as well, and it's been difficult conditions for us here, but thanks to the Daewoo team and the Guy, perfect job, and it's nice to have a win.
For Jannie Habig, it was a deserved title, and he savoured the moment. Volkswagen also claimed the manufacturer's title from Toyota, with Daewoo the only other serious contender in 3rd place.